It was just after noon when Rowan Mercer pulled his aging pickup truck onto a quiet country road, never imagining that one ordinary stop would change the course of his life forever. The bright summer sun stretched across endless fields, birds circled lazily overhead, and his 8-year-old daughter was asleep in the passenger seat after a long morning of traveling. Rowan had spent the last 4 years raising her alone, working endless shifts as a carpenter after losing his wife to illness. Every decision he made revolved around giving his daughter a future filled with safety, kindness, and hope, even if it meant sacrificing his own dreams. Before we continue this unforgettable journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness and second chances, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories to life. As Rowan searched for a shortcut to the small town where a new construction job awaited him, his truck suddenly overheated near an old farmhouse surrounded by towering oak trees. With no phone signal and the nearest town miles away, he had little choice but to knock on the weathered front door. Moments later, the door opened just enough for a woman in her late 60s to look at him carefully. Her silver hair was neatly tied back, and although her face carried the marks of many difficult years, her sharp blue eyes seemed to study not just the stranger before her but the burdens he carried. After listening quietly to his situation, the woman finally spoke with calm certainty. She told him that no one ever lasted a night in her house. Most visitors left before sunrise, frightened or convinced something terrible lived there. Rowan looked toward his sleeping daughter, then back at the woman. Instead of turning away, he simply thanked her for offering shelter, explaining that protecting his little girl mattered more than believing old stories. The woman introduced herself as Miriam Holloway and welcomed them inside. The farmhouse was old but spotless. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating shelves filled with books, faded family photographs, and carefully polished furniture that seemed untouched by time. Rowan noticed dozens of framed pictures of smiling people hanging along the hallway. Every frame had fresh flowers beneath it, as though each photograph represented someone still deeply loved. Throughout the afternoon, Miriam prepared a simple meal while Rowan repaired a broken fence outside to thank her for her hospitality. His daughter, Elsie, laughed as butterflies drifted through the flower garden, bringing a warmth to the property that seemed absent for many years. For the first time in months, Rowan felt an unexpected sense of peace. As evening approached, neighbors began stopping outside the farmhouse. None came through the gate. Instead, they stared silently toward the house before quietly leaving. Rowan found their behavior strange, but Miriam simply smiled sadly and continued preparing dinner. She admitted that rumors had surrounded her home for years. People believed the house was haunted because visitors rarely stayed overnight. Few ever returned. After sunset, a violent storm rolled across the countryside. Rain pounded against the roof while powerful winds shook the old trees outside. The electricity flickered before finally disappearing altogether. The farmhouse fell into darkness except for the warm glow of several oil lamps Miriam calmly lit one by one. As midnight drew closer, strange sounds echoed through the wooden walls. Floorboards creaked. Doors shifted. The old house groaned beneath the pressure of the storm. Elsie woke frightened and clung tightly to her father. Rowan gently comforted her, reading one of her favorite bedtime stories by lamplight until she fell asleep once more. Instead of searching for ghosts, Rowan quietly walked through the house looking for the source of every sound. He discovered loose shutters banging in the wind, worn pipes vibrating beneath the floor, and ancient wooden beams expanding and shrinking with every change in temperature. Hour after hour, he carefully repaired what he could using tools from his truck. By dawn, the mysterious noises that had terrified so many visitors had almost completely disappeared. When the first rays of sunlight filled the farmhouse, Miriam stood silently in the hallway, tears rolling down her cheeks. For years she had watched frightened strangers run away without ever asking why the house sounded alive. Rowan had been the first person to look beyond fear and search for understanding. Over breakfast, Miriam finally revealed the truth. After losing her husband and only son many years earlier, she had lived alone, unable to maintain the aging farmhouse herself. The house slowly deteriorated, and frightened travelers created ghost stories that spread across neighboring towns. Loneliness became her constant companion. She never tried to correct the rumors because she believed no one truly cared enough to stay. Rowan's simple decision to repair broken windows instead of believing frightening stories reminded Miriam that kindness often begins with listening instead of judging. Over the following weeks, Rowan accepted his nearby construction job but returned every evening to continue repairing the farmhouse. Other workers soon volunteered to help. Local teenagers painted fences. Retired neighbors rebuilt the porch. Families planted flowers across the property. The same people who once crossed the road to avoid Miriam's home now gathered there for weekend picnics and community dinners. Elsie became the granddaughter Miriam never had. Together they baked bread, read stories on the porch, and planted a small orchard that would one day provide fruit for anyone who visited. Laughter gradually replaced silence. Hope replaced loneliness. Months later, the farmhouse became a welcoming shelter for travelers whose cars broke down or families needing temporary help after storms. A home once feared by everyone had become a symbol of compassion because one exhausted father refused to let fear decide how he treated another human being. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to A Journey of Hearts. Your support allows stories of hope, forgiveness, and kindness to reach more people around the world. Special request: before we reach the end, please comment, "Kindness always finds a way," if you believe that one compassionate act can change someone's entire life. As another bright morning filled the valley with golden sunlight, Rowan watched Elsie run through the garden while Miriam smiled from the porch, no longer alone. He realized that people often spend their lives searching for miracles, never noticing that the greatest miracle is choosing compassion when fear would be easier. One person's willingness to stay, to listen, and to help had restored not only an old farmhouse but also an entire community's faith in one another. Sometimes the strongest people are not those who conquer impossible challenges, but those who quietly choose kindness when everyone else walks away. And sometimes, all it takes to change a life forever is staying long enough to prove that hope is stronger than fear.